Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 11th December 2020. In this video, we'll be discussing about the need for structural reforms in this article and the problems that Indian policymakers face while making structural reforms. The second one is with respect to the cruelty that camera can't see. This is with respect to the judicial violence that a lot of prisoners face and the need for revamping our criminal justice system. Reform the Indian Way is written by the CEO of Niti Aayog, Mr. Amitabh Kant, who has been responsible for certain phenomenal works like the Incredible India campaign or God's Own Country campaign. So he has been the flag bearer for a lot of reforms, and he shared his experiences at a meeting the other day. So in one particular context, he compared the Indian democracy and he explained as to why we cannot compare it with the Chinese growth model. So he said in that particular context that Indian democracy can't witness the Chinese growth model because of the very inherent nature of our Indian democracy. So this very newspaper had an article which has misinterpreted his statement and it was taken out of context. So that article cited Mr. Amitabh Kant as saying that India has so much of democracy that structural reforms are not possible. That is exactly not what he said. This is an article regarding structural reforms, the need for it, and why we have to understand Amitabh Kant's perspective as well. Again, we have to appreciate the journalistic ethos of Indian Express newspaper for coming out with this article, wherein it explicitly says that this is a column which invites readers to tell why they differ from the editorial positions that are covered in their own newspaper. So this can be used as an example in ethics, especially when we are writing about the journalistic ethos of various newspapers in our country. So in this context, let us get back to the central agenda here, which is structural reforms. Now, what do you understand by structural reforms? To the layman, let me explain with an example. For example, way back in 1995 till 2000, pager was a very huge communication revolution. After that, we've had mobile phones. From early 2010, we have had smartphones. And now we are moving towards big data, artificial intelligence. Now imagine a policy which is still stuck in the age of the pager, which is not addressing the realities of the present day. So the very fundamental structure of our economy is built around smartphones and information communication technology today. But if you don't have a policy that facilitates investments into these areas, how do you expect the economy to grow? That is the basic example which I give when we talk about structural reforms. So the very structure of our economy, which was dependent on something else way back then, has transformed right now. If you are not making policies that are pertinent to the present situation, that is the lack of structural reforms, and any attempt to do that would be structural reforms. Now, where do you see these structural reforms? Basically, we have to look at factors of production. When we're talking about factors of production, we talk about land, labor, capital. Okay, so when we're talking about land, you have to understand that it is a state subject. Now, different states have different policies with respect to land. That is why it is very difficult to acquire land for government projects. Also, the land rehabilitation bill has been a point of contention even during the UPA era as well. The second one is with respect to labor reforms. Now, there are two aspects to this. One from workers' perspective, the other one is with respect to the way employers look at labor compliance. It is not that employers don't want to pay social security benefits to the workers, but the processes involved are so cumbersome that they would rather skip it. So when we have to improve our ease of doing business, This is one area which needs urgent attention, and that is where we have been trying to come up with certain labor codes, which is again met with resistance because of status quo. Similarly, when we are talking about access to capital, today a lot of lending happens through public sector banks. Compare that with other countries like US or any other advanced economy, even the Scandinavian countries, they reach out to the markets. Now, the trust in markets is very low amongst the middle class. That is the reason why we take up the PSB route. Since PSBs have a lot of cash deposits, they lend out money. Sometimes they do it without due diligence. As a result, NPAs rise. So, all these are examples of structural reforms that have not happened. So, these areas should be corrected. On similar lines, when we're talking about agriculture, the ability of the farmer to sell the produce to a person that he desires, to the person where he gets maximum price discovery, has been the agenda of every government almost since 1991. But simply that did not happen because of the status quo mindset. Compare that with any other country. Say, imagine a farmer produces X amount of a particular crop and he wants to sell it at some price. But where does he go? How can he market it themselves? That is not simply addressed by the government. So, in the absence of any other alternative, what the farmer actually does is he goes to the middleman or Arhatia and sells his produce. Arhatia also carries certain costs and he arranges the buyer. So this is his business. Now with the new law, the fear of a lot of farmers is that this middlemen who were facilitating the trade would be disincentivized and corporates would be coming in. So whenever there is this entry of corporates, there is a severe mistrust amongst the lower sections of the population because of the existing historical inequalities. The perception that companies and businesses will always exploit us has been the insecurity behind this farmer protest. So, in this article, Amitabh Kant has been trying to explain as to why this is not the case. Except in a few states like Punjab, Haryana, and also if we take a look at the Shanta Kumar committee report, which says that only 6% of the farmers use the MSP regime. So it is this 6% of the farmers who are well off compared to the counterparts in the eastern and central region have been fighting for their rights. It is naturally their right because they have a existing system which is working for them. Now the government believes that this is an inefficient system and promises that they will have a better system. Now how do you facilitate that is the question. One reason that the farmers are really concerned about is if the corporates come into the picture, MSP not being a legal right will be taken away. Secondly, this Arhatia business who are a major lobby in the Punjab and Haryana states, they are also concerned about their livelihood. So how do you see them in the picture? So these are the pertinent questions and the government must actually address those concerns rather than brushing them aside, because it is a matter of livelihoods for millions of farmers in the state of Punjab as well. Yes, they have been slightly at an advantage when compared to the other farmers in the country, but in a country like ours, we have to go through consensus rather than majoritarianism. Consensus is the best way to achieve acceptance with respect to structural reforms. Initially, we have had resistance for LPG reforms from the public sector banks. They did not like to even adopt computers. Today, we cannot imagine a banking system without a centralized core banking solution. So, this sort of examples should be understood, and the concerns of the farmers should be actually addressed by the government. So, in this article, the author also reiterates the same thing. that we cannot go for a model that is adopted by Chinese to achieve the near 9 to 10% of growth for almost 2 decades. The reason is simple: we respect rights. We might be slow, but we are efficient than the Chinese model. That is what the author is trying to say. The second article for the day is with respect to police reforms. So, recently, the Supreme Court has said that CCTV cameras should be installed in every police station across the country. Even though similar directions were given by the Supreme Court even in the past, this is different because it is very specific as to where the CCTV cameras have to be installed. What happened in the previous case was, just because the Supreme Court asked the departments to install CCTV cameras, they were placed at very random places which did not serve the purpose, and they were just namesake. In order to change that, Supreme Court has given specific directions as to where these CCTV cameras should be placed in the police stations. There should not be blind spots. Those CCTV cameras should be incorporated or installed in such a way that all the areas are covered. So blind spots are those areas which do not cover the entire police station. So such blind spots should not be there in the entire police station. And there should be oversight committees to be set up to monitor the functioning of the cameras. And this data will be preserved at least for 12 months. So in this way, this is a welcome move. But the counter argument for this is the fact that in United States, it was observed that a lot of this video evidence that was taken from CCTV cameras was altered. So this is a big problem. The second one is, most of the violence do not happen in police stations, they happen in isolated places. So the antidote for this is that we have to recognize torture as an offense as per the Indian law. That is not the case right now. So India does have anti-torture legislations, or there are an element of anti-torture tendencies, but the threshold is very high. Unless and until there are serious injuries or even custodial deaths, this aspect of torture does not come into picture at all. So this is a very high threshold that was set by the legislation. Rather, we need to have something that concretely defines torture, and a recognition that existence of forms of physical and psychological torture will leave no marks on the body sometimes. Even that kind of torture should be recognized as per our law. So this requiring of prior sanction from the government operates as the important hurdle in initiating criminal complaints in these cases. So we need statutory guidelines mandating independent investigation of police officers who resort to torture. Thus, we can say that installing CCTV cameras is definitely a positive start. It can act as a deterrence for custodial violence to certain extent, but we need to monitor the police through other mechanisms as well. They should be broader and not very context specific. Supreme Court needs to ensure a robust implementation of its order and simultaneously address the issues that are important when we are talking about the concept of torture. So that is the gist of this article.